intricate relationship between our spiritual beliefs and the decisions we make at the ballot box. And as believers, our faith shapes our values, our actions, and yes, even our votes. But in a world filled with complex issues and diverse perspectives, how do we navigate the political landscape in St. Martin while staying true to our spiritual convictions? How do we ensure that our choices reflect our faith in action and also the will of God? We will find out over the next 3 days, won't we, Apostle?
Yes, we will. In each episode, we sit down with key political figures,
Yeah.
faith leaders, and experts to delve deep into these questions. We'll discuss how their faith influences their policies, their leadership, and their vision for the future. We'll also explore the moral and ethical dilemmas they face and how they strive to reconcile them with their religious beliefs. Our goal is not to tell you how to vote. I want to make that very clear. Our goal is not to tell you how to vote or who
Right.
to vote for, but our goal is to provide you with the insights and the information to make informed decisions that align with your faith. This program is brought to you by the St. Martin United Ministerial Foundation, SMUMF, a 19-year-old umbrella organization representing evangelical and apostolical faith Christians on the island. We are streaming live on our Facebook page and YouTube channel of Dr. Ivan Valerie, and also we are sharing it on SMUMF and the Carib Quest Media. We intend to engage you, our audience, by fielding some questions on, so you please send them in. We're asking that you send some questions in via the comment sections. So, Mr. Rona?
Today, Dr. Valerie, we will be talking with two political candidates who are a part of the August 19th snap elections, parliamentary elections in St. Martin. And we have taken the route of following as the Central Voting Bureau would have assigned numbers to each party.
Yes.
And so for the 9 political parties, we should have 9 different candidates appearing on the series. For today, we will have the first 2 candidates representing the National Alliance number 7, the former Minister of Justice and also a former parliamentarian. While she's already there in the back room, the green room, and she is smiling so brightly, I covet that smile. Miss Anna Elaine Richardson. And we also have from the Empire Culture Empowerment, ECE, Empire Culture Empowerment Party, the ECE, Mr. Nigel Wigley, candidate number 1. You know him as well, the man himself. Welcome to you guys. Good morning.
Morning. Thank you. Can you hear me?
Good morning. Good morning.
Yes, we can hear you.
Morning,
Yes.
Nigel.
Good morning. How you doing?
I'm grateful. How you doing?
I'm good.
Awesome.
Wonderful. That's a very cordial and warm way to begin this, because we know that St. Martin is still the friendly island.
Absolutely.
All right, so we will be having a very friendly panel discussion. I'm not sure, we may get some jabs coming in there, politics and all of that. But we're looking forward to our discussion today. And once again, we want to invite and remind those of you who are following us online, please do send your questions in as well as your comments, and share the broadcast far and wide so that as many people as possible, especially from our interest group, which is the faith-based community, so that as many people as possible can see this live, see these interviews, and make their choice, select their choice. Now, each party, as we said, they will be appearing according to how the numbers have been called by the Central Voting Bureau. We should have had the Swaliga Action Movement, the SAM party, on with us this morning. They're not able to make it, but perhaps we will have them in another session. All of the candidates are vying for 15 parliamentary seats, and out of a total of 22,747 valid voters, or the electorate, which the Christian community, Apostle Valerie, makes up a large part of that, a very significant block.
Definitely.
Yes, a block that cannot be underestimated.
Cannot be ignored.
No, cannot be ignored, indeed. And the expectation is that we will vet before we vote. So hashtag that for us now. Vet before you vote. That is why SMUMF is facilitating this discussion this week. So let's get started with our first two guests. We want to hear from them, their background. Who are you, your professional background, and why did you decide to enter the political race this time around? We will start with the number one candidate from the ECE, and then we go over to number seven of the National Alliance.
I was going to say ladies first, but it's okay. Um, can you hear me? Well, my name is Nigel Emmanuel Wigley, as you know. Um, Born here on St. Martin on the French side. My mother is from Dominica. She's also strong in the faith as well. And I went to school in Canada, Toronto, Canada, graduated from Centennial. Also in St. Martin, I went to school in Marvel. I went to school also in Sister Magda. That's where I learned my Dutch, etc. And one of the reasons why I'm in this election is because God called me to be in this election. So I'm just following orders and being that faithful servant that I've been, that I am.
All right, Nigel, thank you so much for sharing a part of your journey and your background. Let's go over to number seven of the National Alliance, Miss Anna Elaine Richardson.
Thank you so very much, Pastor, for this opportunity. And a pleasant good morning once again to everyone who's tuned in. I am really elated about this opportunity to be here in representation for the National Alliance, which is a party that is Christian democratic institution. Hence the reason that I feel so at home with the National Alliance. But for me in particular, this will be my seventh time in actuality running. And I do remember, if I may share with you quickly, there was some time back where I just felt like I just couldn't do this anymore, right? For various reasons. And I had to really pray about this and decide if I wanted to continue. And I think that is when the National Alliance, as a matter of fact, I think my last run at that time was with the United St. Martin Party, USP. I just wanted to throw in the towel. But at that time, I had gotten a call from our former leader, Mr. William Marlin, and I needed to pray about it to see if I really needed to stay in this arena. Anyways, the indication that I did receive was to continue. And had gone very low in my life. And when I say low is because I was transitioning out of my marriage and everything. And I just felt like life was crumbling for me. And that particular time in my life, I remember praying and asking God to use me to do good in the lives of others. Use me. That just kept being my prayer for maybe a year and a half. When elections happened and our now leader, Silveria Jacobs, approached me and said to me, we want you to take up the position of Minister of Justice because my background is I hold a bachelor's degree in sociology with a concentration in criminal justice. And I just want to reiterate that because lots of persons have wondered, what does she know about justice? Well, I have a degree in it. And so my leader approached me and asked me about taking up the post as Minister of Justice. And to be quite honest with you, I was a bit intimidated by it because fearful of the Dutch language. I was raised in the United States. I was born here in St. Martin, St. Rose Hospital, but at the age of 11, my parents sent me to live with an aunt in New York. So I went to high school, and then college, junior high school and high school in New York. And then I went to Virginia State University. And that's where I acquired my bachelor's degree. So my entire background in education really is within the English structure. So, I was a little intimidated by the Dutch at the time, but then I approached my pastor and I said to him, listen, my party leader is asking me to take up this position. What do you think? And his words to me was, Miss Anna, this is an assignment. And that's where it clicked to me. I said, I've been praying about this for God to use me to help others, right? And we would know that the Ministry of Justice and the personnel of justice for more than a decade had been waiting for their legal position to be established. And that was the assignment that I got. And we successfully completed that in the last governing term, And so there is this experience we're going through right now, this window where we see not much happening with the Ministry of Justice. And so I still feel called to continue with my assignment. Hence the reason that I am contesting this election.
Thank you so much for that explanation. So, Nigel had some formidable education in Canada, and you also in the United States. So, both of you in North America, but you're rooted in Swaliga.
Yes, correct.
All right. So, we have heard a
Right.
little bit about your faith and your motivation for joining this year's parliamentary elections. And we also heard from Anna Richardson, the political ideology of the National Alliance Christian Democrat. Can you tell us a bit about your political ideology for the EC, Nigel?
Well, my political ideology is putting the laws of the Most High back in the forefront because it looked like we have shied away from the Most High. And it's simple. If you look around the island, there's idols everywhere, right? There's also a lot of lawless behavior. You
Mm-hmm.
know, there's a lot of I don't know what's the proper term to put it, but there's a lot of abominational activities that's going on here and also promoted, like what went on the boardwalk June 29th with the Pride Parade, as we call it in the Bible, Abomination Parade, and these are things that I want to champion. I can't sit here and say that I'm a servant of the Most High and I do not respect His laws.
Mm-hmm.
And that's what I see that's going on with this current government right now. They do not respect his laws, and that's why there's so much bloodshed on the island. That's why the island is filled with wickedness. It's like a curse here, you know. Every wicked bird or spirit that you know of is running a rampage on this island. You know, theft, corruption, um, lies, deception, all these things are running rampage on the island. And, one of my main goals is okay, just like how the Most High said, okay, these people are stiff necked, and I promised Moses they're not going to reach the promised land. I said, okay, if that's what it is, because I've been preaching this for 3 years, I have my own ministry. It's called God Chosen Ministries. It's registered in Canada. It's an evangelizing ministry that I traveled to Holland. I traveled all over in the US. And if I've been telling them this for 3 years, that look, we got to change our ways and get back to the laws of the Most High, not just the Ten Commandments. There's a whole governing system that the scriptures teach us on how to govern ourselves. If we don't get back to that, then we will have to leave the elders alone and deal with the youth, because that's the same thing he did when Moses led them out of Egypt. They refused to say, okay, you know what, let's have patience and wait for the Most High. But they while Moses was up in the mountain for 30 and 40 days and 40 nights, they turned against the God. And that's what I see here. Our government preaches that they are for God, but we need works. You can't sin. The laws is basically sin, breaking of sin and whatnot. That's where the laws come in. So if you're not a law abiding citizen of the kingdom of heaven, the kingdom of our Father, Yahweh, Yahuwah, whatever our people choose to call him today, how can you be a citizen? But I noticed that the people rather follow the laws of the land instead of the superseding, right?
That's a very good point,
Superior
Nigel.
laws of God.
I want to ask a question based on that point you just stated. The preamble of the
Constitution.
2010 St. Martin Constitution states, "We the people affirm that we acknowledge the guiding principles of the Almighty God as the core of our values." It's
Right.
14 years later. I wanna ask both of you this question, but I want Miss Richardson to answer first. It's 14 years later. Two questions. Do you believe that these biblical principles still guide our values and policies in St. Martin today? And also, are you willing to uphold these principles and stand against any efforts to remove any reference of the Almighty God from the Constitution?
Thank you for the opportunity. I'll start with the second question first. No, I am not in support of any efforts to remove the basis of our Christian foundation from any laws. However, the fact that you make reference to the Constitution is very important because the Constitution in itself was established with the foundation of Christianity in it, and we recognize that. However, what we have to also realize in society is the need for the balance. The challenge that we have is that one side wants us to go 100% in a specific direction while the other side wants the same thing, and we have to be able to live um, harmoniously in our communities, right? So the challenge that we are experiencing, and I do agree, I feel like within our schools, in our households, etc., the uphold of Christ and the word of God is something that is not as strong as we would like it to be. And we kind of see that in the behaviors of adults, of our children, etc. So for me, it is a case where decisions need to be made, yes. And Nigel made reference to, let's say, the parade that took place. And I myself, as minister, had a challenge with, let's say, for example, requests came in from various institutions wanting to have public demonstrations. You need to be able to respect their constitutional right to be able to demonstrate. But at the same time, like I said, we all have to live within our community harmoniously. So you have to think about everybody within the community. And I had my challenges as well in making that decision. Because if you make a decision for, then the other side feels like as though you're condoning something that might not be in alignment with Christ. And if you go against, then you have those who feel that you're infringing on their constitutional right to have a voice. So when you are governing, it is quite a challenge to be able to mediate in between what you see as your Christian duty, your Christian values, and what you have to do in leadership. So I believe that one of the things I'd like to see is more cooperation between, and we had this discussion before, and I think in a separate meeting. Is it legal, or is it within our legal structure that there's a separation between governing and religion, or with the Christian base? And legally there's no separation, so we should be able to work together. But the element of respecting each person's constitutional right or beliefs is very important as well. So that medium. But I have no favor in being able to remove the element of Christianity or Christ or religion or the biblical foundation from governing, from our leadership roles. I hope I answered your question because it was
Okay.
too broad.
Yeah.
If not,
Well,
I'll
hold
go
on,
back.
Nigel. I have a follow-up
Okay,
question. I'm going to come to you,
can I?
Nigel.
Good.
I'm going to come to that. Give me 1 minute, Nigel. I have a follow-up question. Okay, so you mentioned your experience in government, where you were caught between a rock and a hard stone, to say the least. You are vying now for, I know government is appointed by Parliament, but parliamentarians play a different role than government, more of a legislative role. If you were to be in Parliament, all right, would you what would your decisions be where it pertains to changing the constitution? Because that can be done where the constitution is changed and certain things are removed, and then you have the conflict that those that govern have will not be as
much.
as
Well,
much.
I think that, first of all, a change to the Constitution would mean a referendum. It would mean that we would have to get the input of in totality of our population about what changes we want to the Constitution. So again, it is not something that you can sit here and go, yes, I would be 100% in favor of the changes. However, absolutely open to it, because I do believe there are aspects to our Constitution that needs to be changed. However, it's important to understand that that is not going to be something that is going to happen without the inclusion of everyone within our society. And so that's a level of a debate in itself
Okay. Okay, to you,
that
Mr.
I am
Bigley.
hoping for.
Okay.
Okay.
Thank you so much. To you, Mr.
Well,
Bigley, our original question. Two parts. Do you believe that these biblical principles still guide our values and policies in St. Martin today? And are you willing to uphold these principles and stand against any effort to remove any reference of the Almighty God from the Constitution?
I don't believe that God is guiding this country as of today. And based on one of the questions, right? I don't hate the sinner. Like I said, I'm a faithful servant, so I go by what he says, not what I say or what I think, right? Because I know he knows the heart of man better than anyone else. And based on what he says, don't hate the sinner, but hate the sin. So now, if we go back to, for example, the pride parade, I don't hate none of them, but I cannot promote the sin. I cannot promote the sexual desires they seem like they want to showcase to the world. I can't promote that, right? So now I would make a type of legislation that's keeping the promotion from that type of behavior out of our country. We don't have no gay marriage. We don't have that. So why are we promoting that type of lifestyle if we already don't have it? So that means we're moving backwards. And as far as you say that God within politics, my God is not the God of the valleys. He's not the God of the hills. He's not the God of the church. He's the God of everything. So when I hear people saying separate this, separate that, our core structure of the Constitution or any democracy started with the Most High. I think it was Rome that started this whole democracy thing. Who was the head of the Roman Empire? It was the Catholic Church. So why do we think we have to stray away from what the principle was if you believe in a democratic system? So all these type of different scenarios that I hear the government making, oh, we should do this, we should do that, we're trying to make everybody happy. I'm focused on serving God and making Him happy. Because as you can see, there's a lot of judgment that's going on right now. You heard about 5 people got hit by lightning on the same boardwalk that the parade was. I'm not I'm not celebrating it, but for me, that was a sign. You see the amount of
Sure.
bloodshed that happened the past month. For me, that was a sign. So now we need God even more
All right,
involved
Nigel.
in our
I
leadership in
I
order to
believe this
solve
is a
this
good place
problem.
for me to interject. Thank you so much for sharing that with us. Just some housekeeping rules because we want to get in as many questions as possible. If you both of you can limit your
Okay.
responses to at least 2 minutes maximum, rather of two
Okay.
minutes in
No
terms of your
problem.
responses. But we hear you. We hear what you're saying in terms of your faith, your personal convictions. Now, I would like to see how we are able to manage that, how we're able to merge that, the faith and the works together. Because if you're going into parliament, you're elected to serve as the people's representatives in the parliament. You mentioned righteous legislation, bringing righteous legislation, and we know for that you would need a majority to even pass a motion in parliament, for example. How prepared are you to serve at that level, the parliamentary level, and to be able to get consensus? We'll start with
When you mean
Nigel and then
consensus, when you mean
consensus meaning
consensus,
the majority in terms of agreement, so that whatever motion or legislation that you are
okay.
recommending, so that it can be
So
passed to then go on to the
yes,
different
yes,
councils of state.
yes. I just wanted to make it clear. Well,
Okay, that's fine.
in a
2 minutes, sir.
parliamentary election, right? A parliamentary election, the parliamentarians is voted in by the people, right? So if there's a motion that's going through, and I see that the parliamentarians is not respecting it or paying no attention, I'll just go back to the streets, go to the churches, go to the people, and do a petition. And if there's a referendum that needs to call, we'll get that done. I'm focusing on being the representative of the people. So only, like I said, that one seat is going to make a big difference because I'm going to be very transparent with the people with any motion that needs to be passed. So I'm not just going to depend on the other parliamentarians. I'm going to the
Before
people because there is
Before Anna
committees for
answers,
petition and all of that.
before Anna answers, our follow-up question for you, Nigel. Previously, you
Right,
said that if something is wrong, then you're talking
right,
about it from a biblical point of view, and you said there are certain laws that need to be passed, and certain laws that are certain things are happening that you will not accept or you will not allow to happen
right,
if you are in
right,
Parliament, and these are based on
right,
biblical principles. My question to
right.
you is, what if those things, as Anna said earlier on, are within the constitutional right of the individuals doing it? How would you how would you go about stopping it if it is a constitutional right that these individuals, these groups have?
That's why I'm choosing to stay in Parliament. There's a lot of legislative work that needs to be done. So if it's within their constitutional right, then we clearly have to review it, right? And amend it from there. We'll have to go through it, go through all these different laws that we know that's against God. We'll have to amend it. And I'm gonna do that with the transparency of the people and my team.
Okay, thank you
Thank
very
you.
much.
Thank you. We go over to Anna Richardson. How prepared are you to represent at the level of Parliament and to
Absolutely.
find consensus?
Prepared. And that is the key word, the consensus aspect of it. You have to lobby with at least seven, if I'm speaking of myself being a part, we need eight individuals to be able to pass any law in parliament. And so a consensus is necessary there. And if you're doing an amendment, keep in mind that we have to send that through to on the other bodies, the overseeing bodies and review bodies, such as the Council of Advice. And if the Council of Advice, in keeping with the laws of the land and the Constitution, or if it is the Constitution in itself that we are trying to change, because that's what we have been speaking about, we must be able to recognize the importance that at least seven other persons must be in alignment in understanding those changes and in agreement with. And as I stated before, in society, we must have balance. There's no way you can believe you're going to get every single person to agree with your perspective. Yes, although the objective is for us to be able to live, like I said, in unison and in harmony within our communities, where everybody can feel safe and everybody can feel respected, you must understand the dynamics that, where respect is concerned, not everybody's ideology is the same. So if you are in parliament or you are a parliamentarian with other persons who you need to be able to support the changes you're trying to bring, it's going to take you bringing that level of education, that level of discussion. But you have to understand that a medium is going to be necessary. You mightn't get everything, and you mightn't get everything at once, but it is about being able to work with everyone so that we can be able to identify how we're going to shape our society to be what we need it to be. Yeah, and it's a case where even if if it is not a law that we want, I'm trying to wrap this up really quickly, knowing it's the 2 minutes we have to be in. Not just the requirement of the laws giving that foundation, but within our household as well. What are we doing within the household to make sure that families within themselves is keeping the core of Christ in that household, to be able to teach those children from young coming up to live and respect each other and conduct themselves in a certain type of way. So in answering your question, for me, it would be finding that medium with my colleagues in parliament to be able to ensure that whatever changes we can make can be done and would be an improvement from where we are.
Okay, thank you so much. Next question I have. I think that question just rolled over from the topic of consensus. Knowing that consensus is so important, where it pertains to amending or establishing new laws, what would your this what would your decision be if, because most times you have a, what they call it, quid pro.
Quid
Quick,
quo
quick.
pro.
Yes. So you scratch my back, I scratch your back. So there are certain persons who in parliament, they say, we are a team, we win this together, we do that. So what if somebody who helped pass an amendment or law that you wanted to pass another law that is against your faith? where would your decision lie? Would it be faithfulness towards that individual or your party, or to your individual faith?
Who's going first?
You can go first.
Okay,
Ladies
thank you.
first.
So first of all, my approach in any instance where I am seeking to be able to receive the support, I'm coming to you straight and direct. I'm coming to you straight and direct, and I'm seeking for you to make a conscious decision. That is what is so important about being a representative on this level. You have to, especially when elections is done, technically we've spoken about it, but we don't see it happen too often. The colors should be sat down. So there's no political representation in parliament. We are parliamentarians. We are representing the people of St. Martin. So put down your colors, right? But my approach to you is going to be with the facts and be with the essence of what we seek. So when I come to you, I'm asking you to make a conscious decision about what I am proposing to you. Because when the tables are turned, that's how I'm going to approach your presentation or your proposal. I'm not going to make it based on you supported me on this, so I'm going to support you. If I don't agree with it, I'm not going to, because my responsibility is to be able to make a conscious or make independent and conscious decisions that affects my community and my person living in this community holistically.
Thank you so much, Mr.
Yeah.
Wigley.
Well, if is repeat the question one more time. Let me see if I
The
could answer
question
it there.
the question was, in an effort to establish a consensus, sometimes we give and we take. What if you were asked to support a piece of legislation that goes against your beliefs? Would you do it?
No, that's a no. That's a simple question. If it's good for the people, they'll get my vote. If it's not good for the people, they won't get my vote. And if I could see that, there's some middle ground that we could tweak or negotiate where both sides could feel satisfied, then I'll give it a better look. But like I said, anything that I myself, by the guidance of the Most High, judge and discern that is not good for the people, I'll be transparent and I'll let the people know why.
Thank you so much for that response, Mr. Wigley. And so it leads me right into my next question. And I would really love for you guys to answer with either a yes or no, because we're talking about parliament. It's about the parliamentary elections. When you're in there, and you heard me say, when you're in, so perhaps we're
Amen.
prophesying for
Amen.
people of faith. When you're in there, you are supposed to, because you take an oath to vote and to represent based on your conscience. But what we have seen historically happening is that people vote along party lines, faction lines, or those who are closely aligned in terms of political ideology vote together. And so we would like to hear you now, your conscience, in just a one word answer, yes or no. I will ask the question and both of you can respond yes or no. Let us hear from you, not your party's position, your personal position. The first one, the so called sin tax, placing a sin tax on alcohol and tobacco, the use, consumption, the sale of alcohol and tobacco. Yes or no? Are you for
Yes.
or against?
Yes. Taxation on? Yes.
Nigel, are you
No,
following?
no.
Okay, let me go that again. I'm going to ask a few questions, put out some hypotheticals there. Then you can say to us if you are for it or if you are against it. Not your party's position, but your personal position, because you're supposed to go according to your conscience in the parliament, right? The first one we heard from Anna Richardson. She said yes, she is for it. The so-called sin tax, which is taxing the sale, consumption, exportation of alcohol and tobacco on St. Martin.
Exporting, you talking about.
Exporting, selling,
Yes,
you are for administrating a tax for those two items.
yes, for the export.
Okay. Okay, then. All right, let's move on. The next one, the legal use of cannabis for medicinal and recreational purposes here in St. Martin. Marijuana.
Ganja.
Yes.
You're for the legal use. for
I am
medicinal
for
and
the legal.
recreational. Okay.
Yes. Remember,
Nigel,
you haven't given
your
us the
conscience.
opportunity to elucidate on this, so I'm just going to say yes. I have my reasons, respectfully.
Mr. Wigley?
Someone was calling me, but I heard the question. Yes.
Okay, so yes, you are for the use of marijuana, cannabis for medicinal and recreational purposes. Later on, if you'd like, you can always stitch in
Better
your
than pills.
motivation for that. But we will
Thank
move on. We will move on. Expansion of rights and protections for the LGBTQ. It's
Community.
a whole lot community. Are
Yes.
you for the expansion of those rights? Okay. Mr.
Again, you get the
Wigley.
opportunity to expound.
I want to say yes, but I don't know exactly what rights are you referring to. That's the problem.
Okay, expansion of the rights and the protections, meaning rights, for example, the right to be in a union that is legally seen as a marriage, for example, for those who are of same-sex relationships, the right to
No,
have their sexual orientation not only identified but respected in terms of even our forms that we have in St. Martin, where you would have male or female. Are you for the rights for those to be changed to anonymous or plus and the different
no,
identifications?
no, 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 no. We could protect them, but anything else from that, that's a no. Protection, cool. We're good with that. We love
Okay, so
everybody.
protection of the individual, you're for that, but against
Correct.
expansion of the rights.
Yes, I'm against that.
Thank you so much for agreeing to those rules of the yes or no answers. Perhaps later on you might be able to give a motivation, but we do the need to move on. You said to us that you understand that there is no separation of church and state. And so I would want to lead in with a question concerning that. How committed are you to further consultation with the church, bringing the church alongside in terms of decisions and policies that would be made in the interest of not only our faith-based community, but the entire of St. Martin? How committed are you, and can you give us a practical example of that? We'll
Ladies
start
first.
with Anna Richardson.
Ladies first. Ladies first.
Well, Pastor, you and yourself know that we have sat in meetings, and that those meetings came about with me even reaching out to you, faith-based, to be able to have these meetings in my capacity as minister. Because for me, I value. We in our conversations had discussions about the whole cannabis. Legalization of cannabis in our communities. Did we talk about the LGBTQ community? I'm not sure that we did. However, for me, I look at humanity in its entirety. Yeah, the specifics of what certain groups seek within our community is something that I think we have to be very careful with that, because whether we recognize it or we want to accept it or not, it already exists in our community, and the the strong arm of trying to change certain persons within our community and their ideology is a very, very tall hill to climb, in my view. However, for me, and especially when you are in a capacity as a leadership, you cannot be prejudiced to the human. Yeah. And so the rights of the human must be, and the welfare, the safety, security, and welfare of that human being, that living being, is important. And that's what you have to use as your measure.
Okay, let me say,
But so,
if
so
if you can pause there for me, please, former minister. Yes, we were speaking about the protection of the rights of everyone in our society. But do you believe that we can legislate morality in terms of people's sexual preference, what they're doing in the behind in their bedroom and
and
so
I don't
forth?
know that we can do that, because the
Mhm.
reality of it is this is not something that is happening today. This is years and years that this has existed. What we try to make it seem is like it's a new phenomenon. No, it's not. What I can say is it's getting louder and it's getting more, in your face. But I've even seen photos of this lifestyle dating centuries ago. You know what I mean? And that woke me up to realize, don't be ignorant about the situation of how long this has existed. But to your point about the moral aspect, one's morals is within your character, who you are as a person, how you think. And that has a lot to do with your upbringing and your environment, and these influences that you have around you. Now, do I believe that with education, persons can be more conscious of the consequences of their actions and their decisions? Yes, right? But I don't believe that you can legislate someone to have morals or legislate to shape one's character.
All right. Okay, thank you so much for that. Just a quick follow-up, Dr. Valerie, on that same question. Because if you're saying we cannot legislate, these things have been there from a long time ago. It's now just more open. Why is there a need for expansion of the rights, taking into consideration your personal faith and belief, as you would have said at the beginning? There is a scripture that talks about the old landmarks. Do not remove the old landmarks and the principles from the Word of God in the Bible. So this was never in our legislation before. Why would we need to amend or adjust to
And
bring that in?
And with all honesty, I am not one that is petitioning for, so I could never be one to be able to give you an honest answer as to the why. Only those who are petitioning for this, championing for this, can give such an explanation. We are the ones on the receiving end. We are the ones that are being asked to legislate, to make changes for such inclusion and such updates. And that's where I'm saying the dialogue and the debates would come in. But I could never be the one to explain to you why there it's seen as a need.
I understand. I understand your point of view. I'm from a minister, and I personally am kind of thrown aback because what I get from your answer is that because it has been existing for a long time, then it shouldn't be. It shouldn't be. Did I read that wrong?
Yes, you did read that wrong.
Okay, I
What I'm
apologize.
what I'm saying is that this has been in existence for such a long time. It is coming to the forefront. To the question that Pastor made mention, why then there is a request to be able to have it, I could never answer that
Okay.
because a decade ago, etc., we were not faced with the request to have such updates be done. Everybody was living in society. It was I don't know if it was taboo, so to speak, but at the end of the day, it was not as loud as it is now. Why there's a pursuit to have it done, I could not answer. But I'm just saying that there is a certain this has been in existence for so long that to that community, they just want to be able to be accepted officially. Why that's necessary, I don't know. Because personally, I feel like what happens in your bedroom is your personal business. That's just me. That's just my personal. I don't believe that one's intellectual contribution to our society should depend on their personal business. But again, that is just me. When we're talking about the need for respect and love and in and peace within our community, that's what's important to me. That's all I want. Delving into that other aspect is something that I don't emerge myself into. So at the end of the day, I am not saying that we have to accept the pursuit. I'm just saying it has been here in our existence for a very long time.
All right. Thank you, Minister. I keep saying minister, former minister of justice. We hear you. We hear you. Nigel, how are you committed? How can you tell us that in practical terms, in terms of consultation and stronger relationship between church and state? Can you commit to that?
Yes, I could commit very well to that because I believe that our people perish for lack of knowledge. So I would commit to giving the people the right knowledge into what's going on and how we should live. For example, you was going back to the moral path. Can we legislate something like that? For me, yes, you can. It just depending on how deep do you want to go when legislating that. For example, if we're talking about back on, you can't, you don't know what people are doing when they go to sleep in their room. So that's up to them. God is gonna judge them. And I also is a strong believer in grace. You know, you have grace to pay back a debt, you have grace for this and that. So I believe in grace. So whatever's happening in their house could stay in their house and stay on their property. But where we gotta meet in the middle is here. We have a lot of young youths growing up. We originally started as Christian. Although you said this LGBTQ movement been existence for a long time. Yeah, we knew that since Sodom and Gomorrah and since the days of Israel. We all knew that. It's been in existence. But as far as promoting them, we do not need to take part in that. So what I would do is, right, I would set up laws where the idolatry, if you want to commit in idolatry, you know what idolatry is, keep that in your house, keep that on your property. Don't have that public as if you're promoting it, because now you're trying to take us away from God. And for us being, they like to say that we're kind of sovereign, we're a country in itself. For us being a separate nation, we should have a leadership that's firm, not double-minded, not skipping here or skipping there, depending on pleasing the people. We should be a God faith system and government. So
So give us
now,
an
if we're
example
giving
then, Mr.
people
Wiggley.
grace, I'll give you an
Give us
example.
an
Now, if you want
example
to
of
serve,
meaningful consultation between the church and the state, or the faith-based community and the state, not ceremonial consultation, something meaningful that you can commit to engaging in.
when I was growing up, like I said, I went to Ann and Andy and I went to Sister Magda. Both schools, as far as I could remember, I used to be sitting down and reading a Bible in school. Now you can't find that nowhere. Our Sunday classes, right, used to be full. Our youth night Fridays used to be full. We don't see that no more. We're not encouraging our people to say, look, we have to stick on this path, because if we follow our own path, it's going to lead to destruction. It says that right there in the scripture. We're not focused on that. We're too focused on giving everybody rights that's outside of God. That's the problem. We got to stop focusing on, okay, you should have rights to do whatever you want. You should have rights to do whatever you want. That's cool. We should focus on educating our population, because right now we're living in a lawless nation.
Don't
And
get
I'll
me
be committed in the education of our
focusing
people.
on the violence aspect. When you finish.
Thank you. So I would want to follow up with also asking Anna Richardson, you are campaigning now to re-enter the political arena again and also represent in Parliament. You're going into an area, you have some experience there, but the wider perception is that this fair is seen as corrupt, especially on St. Martin. That's the perception, and it bears out sometimes, and especially during this electoral period. People are accused of taking bribes, people are arrested, there are a lot of investigations. A lot of things come out of the closet. We would say, proverbially, the skeletons come out of the closet. So what I would want to ask you is that, if you're getting into this arena again, you're in the arena again, are there any skeletons in your closet that we need to know about? We don't want to get nothing coming from the prosecutor's office. We don't want to hear anything coming from the Twitter camera. Is there a skeleton in the closet? Lay everything out there for us now. Let us know who we're getting, what we get. I think we're not hearing you. I believe that your audio may be muted.
Yes, sorry, I muted a little bit because I needed to ask for some water and I didn't want that to project. Absolutely not. I can assure you that I have no skeletons in my closet. I was kind of disappointed by the now Minister of Justice had made a public accusation that, for example, the crime funds was missing some 4 million guilders. And he insinuated that those 4 million guilders went missing under my tenure. And on several different interview platforms, I was asked about this, and I indicated that the minister would have to prove that. Lo and behold, in his last attendance to Parliament, the minister indicated that this reference was to a 2018 report that the integrity or the audit chamber had published.
Published.
To date, the minister has not given me a public apology to be able to at least let the public be aware that this has nothing to do with our former Minister of Justice, Anna Richardson, but in fact something that is dated some time back. You know what I mean? But accusations as such could bring you a situation with the prosecutor's office. You understand what I
Right.
mean?
Yes.
Even though they're
Right.
going to do their due diligence and they're going to check before, but it could lead you in a situation where you're being called in or they're coming and they're inquiring, and only in those discussions it is realized that that is not the case. But I fear not, because I know for a fact that a lot of people might not have liked my approach because I stuck to the laws, and for me, those were the parameters that kept me safe. So I have zero reason to be of the opinion that anything is going to come out of a closet pertaining to my person.
Thank you. Nigel, the perception, is it a reality? Are the officials in St. Martin corrupt? Is the system corrupt?
Yes, the system is very corrupt. It's very corrupt.
Okay, why
That's the
why would you want
reality.
to enter such a system then? The system or
Because
individual?
like I said, I was chosen to enter this system in order to save who he chooses to be saved. That's the only reason.
Okay.
And
Thank you. We love your honesty.
I've been preparing for this for about 10 years, because 2014 is when I got that calling directly from the Father. And I've mentioned it before within my testimony that 2014, I can remember it like yesterday, bright and early. I had a vision where God brought me to heaven and told me that I will be representing him directly from now on earth. And when I woke back up from that vision, I was surprised to be alive, because you know the saying, oh my goodness, when you see God, it's like you're going to die if you see God. But throughout the scriptures, Ezekiel, Moses, all these different prophets seeing the Most High. So it's not surprising, but that was the reason that I entered into this, and it started all the way back 2014.
Thank you so much, Nigel. My next question takes us on a different sector, or should I say area, or a different issue on the island, crime. And I'm going to ask that former minister, I wouldn't say like you, minister, former minister Anna Richardson, go first. And that is not no political preference, just that we are following Nigel's instructions to let ladies goes first, right?
Right.
Fair.
we we have seen a surge in crime, gangs and even rioting in Dutch Quarter for the last 2 days. We have seen increase in gun shootings. We have seen with this incident with Plumpy Boss, the whole scenario. The entire nation is calling for a change, for intervention where that is concerned. If elected, what would your game plan be to help curb the crime on the island?
All right, so we got to kind of like peel that back in two ways, because one of the things is, of course, the pursuit right now is to be elected as a member of parliament.
Mhm.
Being a former minister of justice, if I were a parliamentarian, recognizing where the local authorities have limitations in our laws, That is one of the first aspects I would want to, in terms of making amendments to the laws, giving them more authority. The criminal world operates with no boundaries, no laws. However, our enforcement and our law enforcement agencies, they have to operate within the boundaries of laws. And
Can
sometimes
you,
those laws
can you give us an
gives
example?
them so for example, how they can pursue a criminal is guided. If
Okay.
they misstep with how they pursue that criminal, then they are in trouble. We have an issue with scooters on the island. And I'm specifically speaking not for those who are using their scooters and their bikes, etc., to be able to develop skills, because I've seen some videos with some very skilled ones. Those are not the ones I'm speaking of. I'm speaking of those that will use the scooters for a robbery, for example. I don't know if you recall the case where there was a robbery on Front Street and there was a hot pursuit, and one of the officers shot one of the young men. Behind the scenes, the people don't even know, the public is not aware of the level of scrutiny and interrogation that officer goes through, right?
Yes, I
That is
remember.
because they are measured by the laws if they followed proper procedure and how they executed that. Though it is known that that person just committed a very serious crime, though it is known that they were in a very hot pursuit, they are still required to execute. And imagine that your adrenaline is going. You need to catch this person. You are authorized to pull this weapon. You pull the weapon, you pull, but you got to think in through all of that, whether you're doing this correctly so you don't end up behind bars. And I don't think that the public of St. Maarten really understands the level of pressure that our officers are under, especially when the scrutiny comes up. So for me, if elected or when elected, my pursuit would be to be more supportive to our law enforcement body in the laws that govern them, and understanding what they need to have adjusted and updated to give them more support in the execution of their day-to-day activities. However, if it is a case that I have to, or I am asked to return in the capacity as Minister of Justice. One of the things that I recognize, and you can even pick it up if you paid attention to the parliamentary meetings with our current Minister of Justice, there's a breakdown in communication and support and coordination between the minister and his department heads, etc., which is something that I really try to stay away from. Inclusion was something that I kept pushing as minister. As a matter of fact, during our Justice Week, which is in July, I always held the conference, a conference where I brought all of my department heads together, and we sat for 3 days and we talked about what are our challenges and what type of support they need. And that is something that I will continue with, because if they don't have that support from the top, it's going to be a weakened administration on the bottom. You see what I'm saying? So being able to give them that support is very, very important for me. But laws in itself, and policies needing to be tweaked.
Would you agree then? Would you agree, Anna Richardson, then that the Parliament can play a greater role, a more significant role in terms of legislation? The biggest legislation right now, or the one that you find a lot of work happening on, is the budget, which becomes a legislation in itself, the national budget. So, in terms of resources to support the police, would you be willing to lobby for more support for these officers, for all of the departments? We have heard things like the police vehicles, they have been parked in Cold Bay for so long at that garage. Some of them have been there for 3-4 years without being properly maintained or restored. The police, they're not getting enough in terms of their salaries and all of these things. And then people are not joining the profession because they do not see it being very financially rewarding, the insurance for families if something were to happen, all of these things. So apart from just the rhetoric in terms of, yes, we need to support these departments, have inclusion, something practical, the legislation, the
Good.
budget, how much more can we or should we invest into the officers and the justice chain
In con-
entirely?
Good. So that's a loaded question. So you're going to have to give me some time to answer because you touched on some really great aspects of it, which I would want to be able to give the support to. When we speak of a legislation, for example, let's start with a budget. Keep in mind that before this administration left, we did pass the 2024 budget. However, this current government has aspects of that legislation, that budget, they do not agree with. As such, they are currently executing
Cutting.
amendments. But
Right.
those amendments have to go through the Council of Advice, the CFT. So that's a whole legislative track. We are 2 weeks away from elections. So we have to really see how much they can achieve within in that time frame. One of the things that is seriously at in jeopardy is the new prison project, whether we recognize it or not. And the prison is not supposed to be seen as an institution that is supposed to be negative. It is actually a rehabilitation facility. So yes, someone went down the wrong road, they committed a crime, but while in that institution, we have a responsibility to rehabilitate them, to be able to give them the education and the support they need so that when they exit, they never come back, right? But if the institution itself is deplorable after 30 years, salt wear and tear, hurricanes, etc., the Netherlands has allocated over 30 million. In this case, 20 million is for the construction of. And it's currently in jeopardy because the current minister and the current government, and I'm not pointing fingers, I'm just trying to give you an understanding of where we are, has not prioritized the importance of this to safeguard it. We stand the chance of losing it. That's one.
For clarity, Ms. Richardson, are you referring to the UNOPS project?
Yes, the new prison
Okay.
project, UNOPS works with that. But in addition to that, remember it's St. Maarten and the Netherlands that's working jointly with this. UNOPS is just an overseer of the procurement process in this whole hemisphere of a project. So that is in jeopardy. Now, so when you talk about police vehicles, we're talking about, again, the budget. On that, CapEx was approved. CapEx is capital expenditures, an opportunity that we hadn't seen for a number of years that Minister Arian was successfully able to bring back as an opportunity for us to acquire funding. Those funds were acquired, but here's what has to happen. The monies are there. The institution or the department, meaning KPSM in particular, who has to utilize, and I'm just using one because I believe the immigration department has opportunity in there too. They are the ones that are on the operation level. So they know what vehicles are most durable for their level of operation. They now have to go to the car dealership, identify the most durable vehicles they'd like, get a performance invoice, complete, and from 3 different institutions, or they can put a tender out at least from 3 different institutions and choose the best one and put forward an advice. That advice now goes through the necessary channels, gets approved, the monies are released, the cars are purchased. The reason that this has not been done within this administration is something that I could never answer. However, the provisions were made possible by my administration. Another aspect you asked me about is more on the legislation. We need resources. We need to be able to pay. The issuance of fines in our community is currently under the structure of the OM, or the prosecution services has the responsibility by law to pursue individuals that have not yet paid their fines. Yes, but that process with them is such a tedious one, is the way that they frame it, because they have higher prioritized cases that they have to address and don't have the personnel to pursue individuals with our community telling them to come pay. So what I did was picked up the administrative law, much like how it is in the Netherlands. The administrative law went through the Council of Advice, and I guess it's just sitting in within the Ministry of Justice. What we need to do, review what the administrative changes the Council of Advice advise needs to be done. Once we've met those changes, we will send it to Judicial Affairs. They will confirm we did what we were supposed to based on the advice on the Council of Advice. Hope I'm not going too fast. And then we now take that and send that to Parliament. When we send it to Parliament and that administrative law is passed, it means that we no longer have to depend on the OM or the prosecutor to seek to recover these funds. They become immediately, you can recoup them
Recoverable.
immediately, right? So
So
if someone goes to the receiver's office or the census office, they can be advised, hey, listen, you're seeking to get this, this, and this, but be aware that you have this outstanding for citations. This is over $1 million United States dollars that is uncollected. Do we understand what we can do for the Ministry of Justice and resources for our staff with that kind of injection? So, as minister or as a parliamentarian, I would seek for us to be able to get that administrative law to Parliament, get that passed, so those monies can start to come in immediately. Yeah, just a
Th-
few. I think I said a
Thank
lot.
you. Nigel, how can we make St. Martin safe again with the upsurge in gun violence, crime? And it's not just limited to this island, it's crime is transnational, it's all over in the region. How can we make St. Martin again? What are your recommendations?
I have a different approach. I'm used to dealing with how we should say children that need more attention, guys like that. How I would do, right? Instead of pumping money in the police system, I would put more money in the community because clearly you could see as that, for example, with DQ, these people are crying out. They're living in poverty, right? They need a voice. They need a helping hand. They need guidance. They need education. So I would focus more into the community councils, right? The volunteers, and I would train them up on how to go out in the community and talk to these people. I'll give you an example. Yesterday, I was in Dutch Quarter, right? And when I went there, the people was happy. It was like, yes, Nigel's here. Now we could have a mediator for us. Now we have a voice to talk for us because they crying out. They tell me, oh, we've been neglected with the GB. A lot of politicians come to the neighborhood, making a lot of promises and a lot of what do you call that? Okay, let's just stick with promises of tomorrow, and they didn't do nothing for us yesterday. They're making a lot of promises of what they're gonna do next week, and they didn't do nothing for us last week. They're coming to the community, feeding them, giving them drink and whatnot. Then they leave, and then nothing's happening. So now they're basically protesting against some of that. I'm not saying that's the main problem because she explained scooters was involved. Like I said, I'm dealing with the youth. But from the main issue, they're protesting against that. So when I went there to talk to them. I basically had a meeting. We seen about maybe 20 to 30 officers come up to us. And they know these people told me that there's police coming right now to do whatever they gotta do, but they're gonna choose to sit there and have a dialogue with them, a conversation through me. And as they came, there's a video. Oh, they came, they spoke to me a little bit, they started searching, they started doing this, they started going against everybody I was there. So I had a public meeting. I'm out there to campaign. And we was met with that type of behavior. So these are the type of things I don't agree with. I believe that we should have people available that will go to the community, go to the different blocks, because I don't even like calling them blocks. Our people is known for gathering. If you had parks and stuff like that, we could have had the youths gathering there, also with the elders, and they would have kept an eye on them like a community watch. We don't have that. So now when we go and clean up all those so-called blocks that they have, for example, in Dutch Quarter, the people are gonna gather somewhere else. And if you just run upon them and start arresting them, breaking in houses, searching them, when they was expecting a dialogue, they're gonna react a certain way. That's why you seen fire last night. A representative came to represent them and talk to them, and an order went out from the prosecutor to just go in there and ransack the place. So what kind of respect are we giving our people when it's scriptural that we should love our neighbor as ourselves, respect our elders? I can't hear you. Are you talking?
No, no, you go ahead, Nigel. Go ahead.
Okay. Well, what example are we doing when the scripture said, don't neglect the orphans, right? Respect the foreigners, right? Don't provoke the youth and respect the elders and the widows. What kind of example are we showing to the people? So going back to your question, how would I get this done? I would focus on the community council, the leaders in the community.
He has a
Sit
violence.
down, train them up, and say, look, Go to every little section where you see the youth chilling and listen to them. Some people just need to be heard, and that would solve a lot of problems. And I've been doing that for the past 3 years. I go and listen to the population. I try to be a voice for them, and I try to solve the problems that's within my capacity to solve.
Thank you, Nigel.
All glory to the Most High.
I was of the same. Well, yesterday I was asking a friend of mine, why isn't any politician up in Dutch Quarter trying to help, restore order? It's a wonderful thing you said that. And my question to you is, when I think of the greats like Martin Luther and all those that went through all this persecution for what they believe, do you see yourself like one of those?
Of course I do. Of course I do. I just got so used to it that it's like waking up, thanking God, and taking on the day. I've been arrested for my faith. I've been prosecuted for my faith. I've been blackballed, left on the streets, on the sand for my faith. So, I got so used to it that there's nothing really left for you to do. And, I'm not mad at anybody. As you know, I love my people. So, although I don't agree with certain politicians, although I call them corrupt, I, I still love them. I still love them. I just hate their ways, hate the sin, but I still could look at them and love them. That's the problem I'm dealing with right now. But it came with a long life of being prosecuted in such a way that God gave me no choice, that I have to forgive friends, have to forgive enemies, have to forgive family. So, with that being said, is a blessing. And yeah, although I see myself like a Marcus Garvey or Martin Luther King or Malcolm X, it comes with the program, but I rather see myself as what he calls me, the Yah chosen son, his chosen son to represent him and to take whatever prosecution that comes his way, so that the world, and not just the world, the island, because we focus on St. Martin, can see his love, his mercy, and his commitment to his holy nation, because that's our father, and he have patience with the children, and I will have too. So I will have the same patience. So if there's any problems that's going on in those communities, I'm going to be the first one there. I'm not going to wait on no politician. I'm going to sacrifice my life just to save, even if it's one youth, because they need guidance. Our people are crying. They're crying.
Thank you so much, Nigel. For our viewers, you can, in the comment sections, you can submit your questions and we'll see how we can get it in. We are almost out of time. But my next question to our guest, and of course, I'm going to go with from a minister, Anna Richardson. What are your what are you
Championing.
championing this election, and how does that align with your faith?
Okay, thank you very much for that question. So, one of the things I want to point out is that in 2020, in 2019, after the elections, I had a short stint as a member of parliament because I was being screened as well to become the Minister of Justice. I am a strong proponent when it comes to the need for our community councils to have a voice and have action. So what I did was, and I also feel like, during these times, what we hear from the communities a lot is that we only see you all when it is election time, and everything has its season and everything
Right.
has its time, right? And then we don't hear from you again. So I always recognize that there is a need to bridge that gap. So what I did was, within that short period of time that I was a member of parliament, I successfully got the members of parliament to unanimously agree to the establishment of the Community Council Committee of Parliament. That is an official committee that now exists, or existed since 2019 when I got it passed. The unfortunate thing is, when I went to become minister, no one within parliament actually picked up that opportunity to be able to do just this. Our community councils, in its functioning, would be the body that gains the information and the grievances of what's happening within their respective neighborhoods and communities. They would then bring that information to the Community Council Committee of Parliament, who would then hear these out, take notes of these, and then call the respective ministers into Parliament, be it the Minister of Social Welfare, which is VSR, be it the Minister of Education, be it the Minister of Vromi, because maybe the neighborhoods there's not proper lighting or they have abandoned cars or whatever it is. Be it the Minister of Justice, if it is a case that there is like a heightened in robberies and home invasions and other things that you need a minister to address. This way, we bring an opportunity that there is a working relationship between the communities, the government, and the parliament. As I said, unfortunately, that did not occur. So, one of my pursuits is to be able to have that revitalized, have the community councils revitalized. There are some communities where there's no council. So that needs to be established. But that's also because many of the councils didn't feel like they were being heard. And so we need to be able to put a proper structure in place where it is not just a case where you're meeting within your communities, having discussions, and the information is going nowhere. All right. And I think, though that approach in itself, what we see unfolding in Dutch Quarter, etc., it will move. The information will move to where it needs to move to, and a systematic response can happen. And another thing that I'm doing today, I have an article out, and I did a live on it yesterday, is the protection of us as consumers. Because we often talk about, the cost of living being high, the price gouging that's happening, or it is a case that within our community we're spending monies or we're receiving bills and we can't get justification about how these bills were accumulated, or we having shortage in service but the bills are staying the same, or various experiences we're going through within our households and communities. So I believe a consumer protection bureau is necessary on St. Maarten, because this institution, away from political interference, gives an opportunity for institutions to challenge these institutions that are responsible for giving us the goods and services. Yes.
Is
Sorry.
is this an agency perhaps that might also be able to assist in giving representation to everyone who is so frustrated in terms
Exactly.
of the utility situation on St.
Yes,
Martin
ma'am.
with GB and Tellem? We saw just this weekend, last weekend rather, in Jamaica, for example, the regulatory body there, they issued an enforcement offer to the order rather to the Jamaica Power and Light Service
Mhm.
that JPS has to reinstate power to almost 80% of their clients who have been out since Hurricane Beryl passed in Jamaica.
And
If
if we
they
were
do
to
not do that, there
yeah.
is something that will happen. They will have fines. There's certain strong measures that will be brought against that power company.
And
So,
and if we were to
what do
compare
we
that
have
to St.
here?
Martin, exactly. If we were to compare that to St. Martin, what do we have here? Everyone focuses that responsibility on government. And so we need to recognize that an actual independent institution is needed. Just like we have the audit chamber, just like we have the integrity chamber, you need to have a consumer protection bureau that stands up for the community and represents them. Because you, as an individual going in, you're just going to get turned and circled and no real solution coming to the challenges that we're all facing. So that is another one that I have in the pipeline. And so for me, it is very important as well for us as a country to be able to generate the income we need to suffice our social ailments. Because at the end of the day, recognize that we have a very low compliance rate, and everything cannot be about taxation. We cannot seek to levy taxes on those who are paying to be able to make up the difference for those who are not. So we have to find other means to be able to generate income for our society and in our country, so we can invest the money in our education, invest the money in our social welfare, be able to give our people the type of support they need. Because everybody speaks about that. Invest more money, investment. Where is the money coming from if we don't ensure that our Ministry of TEAT in particular, who has the economic responsibility of growth for St. Martin, to do its part? There's so many ways that our country should be making money that we have not tapped into yet. So that is one of the other ways that I am trying to see as a member of parliament, or if I were to function in government, to see to it that we start to be able to make things possible for our country. And that's just a few
Definitely,
on
there's a
some of
lot
this.
of definitely there's a lot of work to be done, and we hear you, Nigel. When I said GB, NVGB, we could have seen the frustration on your face. Nigel, are you there with us? Can you hear us still?
Yeah, you said you could have seen my frustration when I said GB.
Yes,
Continue from there because I was getting a call.
yes, yes. We could have seen, the frustration on your face when we said GB, because I know for a few months you have been in front of our main power company protesting with your bullhorn, as you are known for using. Is it time then for us to have something like a class action lawsuit in St. Martin against the treatment of
Well,
GB and these bills and so forth? Is this something
well,
that you would be willing to champion in the absence of a consumer protection agency?
if you want me to be honest, I had a petition going on from last year. I got about 400 signatures for GB. I drafted up some documents to start this lawsuit, but I was told by the public that, hey, we should wait. We should wait. There's a new government. All the other political parties are now campaigning about GB, so there's hope. And I told the people in my last debate in January, I said, look, I know all the political parties are campaigning about GB, but when it's all said and done, they will turn their back on you and it will get worse because I've been in contact with GB workers and this load shedding problem was foreseen years before. It was just reaching to a boiling point. And the bills, you know what's going on with the bills. So we already took action as ECE. And one of the responses from the public when we was taking action was like, you know what, Nigel, we'll take you even more serious if you step into the political arena and become a leader. I said, you're sure? Like, I'm good just drafting these documents, these laws. They say, no, the way you study these laws and the way you're bold and defend yourself, even when police is running up on you during the pandemic, we think you should be a leader because you study this stuff. I said, okay, but I said, as your advocate, it's not in your interest to give any slack to these people because it's election, because that's a campaign gimmick. Look what I was running on. I was running a petition for GB, for ANIA, for minimum wage, for pension, for more attention for the youth and parks and stuff. And these became a full campaign slogan for all these other parties. But up to now, as the St. Martiners do, we haven't seen nothing yet. So what are we waiting on? And right when the load shedding got a little crazy, people was like, where you at, where you at? I was in Kobe rattling up the people and saying, look, we have to do something about this, we have to do something, going all over the island. And that's when our prime minister said, you know what, we should look into getting new generators, we should look into renting this, renting that. I didn't really agree with the solutions, but at least something was done. And this is what I need from the people. If you want me to represent you, you have to support me because I'm doing all this for free. I haven't gotten one government check yet, and I'm doing all this. If you was to check a lawyer, that lawyer would have ran up a tab of 20 grand already, doing a petition, doing this, doing that. This is a lot of work. So that's why I'm asking the people for support because if we don't get the proper support for these stuff, it's gonna be a problem. Right now, we got a bunch of generators, right? They should be in service and working. I think by the end of this month, that's what they said. But there's still gonna be overhaul. There's still not enough megawatts to supply the whole country. So what's the problem? It's only gonna be good for probably 2 months, maybe a month or two. It might not become enough 5 times a day, maybe just 2 times a day. Then we're gonna go back into this problem. So yes, back to your question, we do need to do a class act lawsuit because this is ridiculous. Where is the consumer protection?
Um,
When you buy stuff and we have no consumer protection. If we had consumer protection for GB, you think they'll be doing this type of stuff? No. You think they would really care if our appliances is getting mashed up? I got food poisoning because of GB. I have an electric stove. My fish was defrosting for about 5 hours, and I said, you know what, I'm cooking that fish. And then when I started to season it up, finish defrost, it told me season it up, get ready to put it on my frying pan on my electric stove. Current went off, and I said, you know what, I heard that it was off already for about 8 hours today. It won't be off no longer than an hour. I went to sleep, woke back up 4 day morning by the surge of the electricity. Boom, woke me back up, and I said, you know what? I'm hungry still. I got an appointment in the morning. Let me fry up that fish because it's right there already, and I got fish poisoning from that. So who to blame? They never mashed up my appliances, but
Wow, the
they had
trauma
me
is
out for
real.
3 days during an election. The trauma is real. The trauma is real. So, we're
Nigel,
all feeling it in different ways.
Nigel, I want to ask you. You mentioned
I'm
earlier on
listening.
that the prime
Hmm.
minister decided to get some generators, and you agreed, although that was not the solution you wanted. If you were
Right.
if you had the power, what would the solution for GB be? What do you think is the solution for GB?
I would have came with a temporary solution first, right?
Okay.
Obviously, people want current now. They're sick of load shedding now. So we would have to get the generators, right? You see the French side are doing that as well. But I wouldn't rent. Let's buy generators. Why rent? Somebody said, oh, there's is rent to own, but as far as I read from the press release, is rented. Secondly, I used to stay in Point Blanche. Over there, the wind don't stop blowing, right? If you go to Curacao, you go to Holland, which is part of the kingdom. You see wind turbines, you see windmills. We could be working towards getting renewable energy of that sort. I know GB won't be making as much money as they're doing right now. They can't be sending us outrageous bills. They won't need all these workers, but this is our way to move forward,
But do you
in
think
renewable energy so we don't.
do you think that Saint Martin has enough wind or land area to be sustained by wind turbines for electricity?
One of the nicknames here is called Windward Island Bank, right? I mean, Windward Islands, right?
Hmm.
If you go to Point Blanche, if you ever lit Point Blanche, the breeze there do not stop. We have hilltops that we could put wind turbines. But for me, Point Blanche, anywhere on that east side of the island where you got that Atlantic Ocean wind, the breeze there do not stop.
There
So
is
all we gotta do is when there's a hurricane, just lay it back down flat. Make sure that there's a lot of salt that comes off the beach.
Right.
We gotta make sure that's good as well.
the idea is a good idea. Would
Right.
it be something that you would lobby in parliament if elected to even do like a study to see if it's possible?
Yes, I would lobby it because there are people already studying this. I
Okay.
travel a lot. I got a lot of people in Holland. They're already studying this. I gave them the ideas of where I would like to do it. So they're checking the costs already. They're checking the maintenance, and they're checking how much energy could come out of that.
Okay.
So there's also solar as well, but I like to use the wind. All
Okay.
right. All right.
Former Minister Richardson, your hand went up. I saw
No,
I saw that church girl in you came out a while ago.
I wanted to know if I could ask Nigel a question, but he covered it. And that was the
Okay.
fact that we are in a hurricane belt. And so I wanted to know what was his position on how we would be able to, erect and then bring down those things in the event that a hurricane is coming. And sometimes we get those false alarms. So the hurricane is
Mhm.
coming, thank the Lord, it will bypass us. And so to be able to, I'm not an engineer, and this is not my expertise. So I definitely would rely on the experts in this area to be able to give us proper advisory of what it is we need to do. But at the same time, I totally hear, if I may just contribute a little bit to this particular subject matter, I totally hear what Nigel is saying in terms of the class action, because it's something that I thought of as well. I am also of the position that I think that the bills need to be wiped out. I believe that the bills need to be wiped out, but as well, just wiping out the bills isn't sufficient, because you need to be able to ensure that when you're coming back online with your billing system, it's a billing system that is accurate, and not that we're going to plunge the community back into a situation where everyone is trying to understand how is it possible that my bill is so high, or being advised that you have a water leak. It can't be that everybody has a water leak, so something is wrong somewhere. And that needs to
Um,
get addressed. Hence the reason that I'm
right,
saying that in representation, especially with dealing with a giant, in this instance as we speak, the individual by themselves is not going to be able to achieve much. And so, with the Consumer Protection Bureau, they have the legal authority to be able to challenge this. And when they make a decision and give an instruction, there are penalties that come with it. You know what I mean? So you go there, you make your complaints, and with all, just like the ombudsman does, the ombudsman represents the people against government. And as I stated, I am a minister that ensured that when the ombudsman got in touch with my ministry, that we neglected to do something, or we did something that offended someone or was in violation to someone, we did the steps that was necessary to fix that. Yes, the most of a penalty or a consequence that came out of that was a negative report within the community. But the Consumer Bureau has to have even more stringent opportunity to be able to deal with the institutions on our island. Whether you are bringing in products, so for example, you're bringing in a refrigerator. I'm spending top dollar in your institution or your retail institution for this product, and in a month's time it's not working, and you're giving me a 1 month warranty. That's a refurbished item, and it is unfair to do that to our population. As such, I believe it is essential. At least, listen, this is my perspective. I'm coming in from a different perspective of wanting to bring the protection for the consumers, while others are thinking about the generators and everybody got a role here, but that is my pursuit, the protection.
okay.
I'm glad that you mentioned, just a
Um,
minute, Nigel,
okay.
that now that you mentioned the ombudsman and complaints going to the ombudsman and you being responsive in your previous position as a minister, I would like you to speak to the matter of the accusations that have been leveled against you in terms of uh, causing division in families, splitting parents and children as they were applying through the immigration process here in St. Martin. We know that has been something that has been very controversial. And just in this same term, we have seen a family that has been reunited. And one of the claims is that you were responsible for the separation between mother and child. In our community, we take family very seriously and we want to guard the family. Can you speak into that, Anna Richardson?
Thank you so much for giving me the opportunity to address that, because your last words is what affects me most troubling, and here's why. You said that it is believed that I am the one that caused the separation between the families. The reality of the matter is, this young lady, I believe in 2017, was experiencing 2017. Remember, I didn't take office until 2020. Somewhere around 2017, 2018, this young lady had a high risk pregnancy with twins. The Minister of Justice then agreed with the Minister of Health, VSR then, to have this young lady sent to Colombia to deliver the babies, to which she was sent. Yes, this young lady, born to a mother from Santo Domingo who was illegal on St. Martin, gave birth to her children, never fixed their papers in accordance to our Dutch law. And this is not St. Martin law, this is our kingdom law. When you are birth to a parent who is not legal on the island, you assume the nationality of your mother. Hence the reason when she gave birth, she was then sent to Santo Domingo. While in Santo Domingo, remember, she was not deported. When you are deported, you are banned from St. Martin for 3 years. Okay? If it was a case that she was banned, she could not come back to St. Martin because of that ban.
Right.
It was not her situation. Another minister came in before me, and I believe the case came before him. It was, I'm sure, a situation where she was also advised, like I did, simply acquire the Santo Domingo passport, apply for a Dutch visa, and come back to St. Martin. In my instance, which is something that no one is talking about, especially the family, she had a sister that was living here, that is living here in St. Martin. Do you know that I am the minister that gave that sister humanitarian? I gave that sister humanitarian, and that is also the sister that was in communication with me on behalf of her sister. My sentiments were the same. The minister doesn't have to do anything. Your sister just has to follow the law like everyone else and apply for a visa. But the sentiment of the family seemed to have been, we didn't send you, or I didn't send myself to Colombia, and I didn't send myself to Santo Domingo. St. Martin did, so St. Martin bring me back. That's not the way it works. So the minister didn't have to step in, and the minister was not hindering this lady from coming to St. Martin. Simply follow the proper procedure like everyone else. And I told the sister, when your sister applies for her visa and comes to St. Martin, I will grant her humanitarian just as I granted it to you. So I am not in any way at fault or in any actions of my own of keeping this young lady away from her children. It was a matter of help me help you. You do your part and I will do mine. That's
But
it.
is this the only instance of parents and children being separated? We've
So
gotten
one
a
of the
lot of other reports and people not getting their renewals done,
one of the
parents
challenges
permanent, children not being documented.
So one of the
Go ahead.
challenges that I know we have experienced, or the instances we have experienced with the Ombudsman Office, is not responding to persons in a timely manner, where they feel like they sent a letter in. This instance where it is being mentioned that I separated families, I would love to see where that actually happened. Because what we tend to do in our community as well is jump on bandwagons. Someone says something in our community, we have no facts to back it up, but we jump on the bandwagon and we're repeating that information as though we know it is true. So please show me where I've done that, because I can tell you, my staff and I at the immigration department had many discussions about that, where indeed they were bringing me, the mother is approved, the child is somewhere else, the mother is trying to bring the child to St. Martin, but the mother is not meeting, let's say, for example, the financial requirement. So, in other words, if you are a single person, your minimum income should be about 2,000 guilders when we think about cost of living, rent, etc. But if you're going to bring another body to come and live with you, then your income needs to be something like 3,000 and above. There were persons who were not meeting that. So the concern of the legal review was, would we be bringing someone or a child into a situation that is a struggle, that is difficult? And their advice to me would be, Minister, this is going to be a difficult one. They don't approve. I always fought for children. As a matter of fact, that was my soft spot. I'm a mother myself, and I would want my children with me. So, this notion in the public of me separating parents and children, or taking children and sending them back, persons or children, individuals that would have been advised that they would be deported, are individuals over the age of 18. And if you're over the age of 18, you
You
have
know,
the right and responsibility to apply for your status. It is no longer your parent. But a lot of parents have also put their children at a disadvantage, and
Right.
our efforts was to try to help you. We had stacks and stacks of requests for humanitarian, and we assisted them. One of the things, and this is going to be my last point because I don't want to take up the live, we have individuals in our community that the Netherlands has revoked their Dutch nationality. And let me tell you why. Because the immigration process was not followed correctly.
Oh,
And
wow.
when the Netherlands would have checked that and they realized the loopholes in it, they revoked. I have had families under my leadership or my tenure where I had to, with the staff, work with them, that they had to go through the immigration process again, give them humanitarian retroactive, so then they can apply for their Dutch nationality, and it was done correctly. My mother, born Anguillian, I'm about to go to Anguilla when I get off here. I have to pick up her birth certificate because she received a letter from the census. Mind you, my mother is a Dutch national. Huh? But a letter came to my mom advising her that their records do not show that she has a certificate, a birth certificate in their records, and they're giving her a certain time period to be able to present that. I'm going to Anguilla and I'm getting my mother's birth certificate and we're going to present it because the checks are being done. And what I will not do is facilitate setting someone up that in the future they have to experience something that is contrary to what they thought they had. So,
Yeah.
as minister, I follow the laws. We would have our policies. We tweaked our policies where they needed to be. So, for example, concubine. There were persons who were upset because we removed the opportunity for concubines to file. But you know why we did that? Because we saw the business happening within concubine. A man and a woman sitting down for an interview and don't know each other's names. That's a pay transaction that's happening there. You are not genuinely involved with each other, building a life with each other. You don't have children together and these things. So we had to clamp down on that, bring control with it. And then I issued a new policy that opens it back up because now we even know better, or the immigration department knows better how to handle those sorts of requests. So we've made a lot of changes in terms of tightening the way that we process things, but we've also opened up those opportunities as well. We've had women in domestic marriages, but they stayed in the marriages because they were afraid that if they divorced the man or leave the man, and that is what they held over their head, they wouldn't get their papers. As minister,
Papers.
I changed that. I made it possible that a woman, especially who is in a domestic or an abusive relationship or marriage, would not have to stay in that in order for her papers to be complete and she can get permanent. No one talks about those things. You know what I mean? But we have to recognize that St. Martin is a small territory as well, and we are densely populated. If you look at the Ombudsman's report, there are over 6,000 persons on a waiting list for housing. Our schools do not have sufficient space for children. Our medical care has a challenge covering everyone. There was a gentleman who lived on St. Martin without proper documentation for many years. He fell ill mid-air traveling to Colombia for medical. He passed. When his native country was contacted and asked if his remains could be brought there so that he can be rested, they refused. St. Martin brought him back and we executed the necessary burial service for him. You know what I mean? There's a lot of information that the public doesn't have. But again, persons hear something and they jump on a bandwagon and they go with it. And oftentimes you do not have the correct information.
Talking about family, one of the biggest issues we have where it pertains to properly being able to maintain a family is the cost of living. And a great aspect of that comes where it pertains to the rent. What are your plans, if any, to help with the
Right.
rent and
I'm happy that you mentioned that, and off air, I'll be able to share with you my flyer so you can see the things that I'm championing. One of those things is to be able to give our Rent Tribune an amendment to their legislation. The Rent Tribune is also something that functions in our community, but they don't necessarily, as we say, have teeth. Because if you have an issue with your landlord or you have an issue with a tenant, because it's an opportunity to level the playing field for both parties, right? Rent is a major issue on our island, especially when our banking industry has such high rates and payments for landlords. What landlords do is they need that investment to repay itself. So if I'm going to rent a unit, I'm going to do those additions to make sure that this facility that I am making available for someone to use as a home, what they're paying me contributes to my ability to pay the
Pay
bank.
my mortgage. Yes.
But at the same time, I have to ensure that what I am charging you meets the quality of a facility that you're giving me. You can't be a slumlord and you're expecting persons to pay a ridiculously high amount in rent. And if they're indicating to you that certain things need to be addressed and fixed, you're refusing to do that. But at the same token, you can't be someone who moves from unit to unit to unit without paying your rent, or from unit to unit being destructive, and there's no database to keep record of who you are, whether you're a renter or so forth. So when it comes to how much one can charge for rent, that is a very difficult thing to do, because you have to look at which neighborhood you want to live in. You have to look at if a realtor or how you call those again?
Property owner.
Evaluators, appraiser. An appraiser also would tell a landlord or property owner, hey, because of this neighborhood and because of the size and because of the amenities that you're offering, you, according to our market, can charge this. Yeah.
Right.
We need an institution, or the institution we have, to be able to have more authoritative ability within our community to be of assistance to both the tenant and the landlord. And that is our existing rent tribune. But like I said, I'm championing as a member of parliament to be able to address their legislation, giving them the ability to be in representation. This also avoids persons needing to go in their pockets to go to court, because that's an expense as well. If you have a dispute between a landlord and a tenant and you need to go to court, it's money that we don't have. You know what I mean? So that is another one that I am championing. Thanks for asking.
Mr. Wigley, what are your plans to combat the extensive rent on St. Martin?
Well, that's a big topic there, right? And for me, the cost of living is too high for the people. So I would have to look into all the different avenues that Miss Anna Richardson mentioned. She mentioned a few. Go through the rental board, the laws, and then we'll have to try and set some price cap from there. We'll have to take it from there. There's a lot of things you could put in factor, like she said, the area they're living in, um, the type of conditions they're living in, what the landlord is paying towards the bank, and what property taxes they're paying. I'll have to look into all of that. But my current stance right now, for the minimum wage, the rent is too high. I mean, it's good if you're a politician, right? They're getting paid about 22K and up. If you understand what I'm saying, right? But it's not good
That's
for the
Gilders.
for the family. That's Gilders. That's Gilders. It's not good for the family who's getting paid less than 2,000 Gilders a month. So obviously there's a problem, and this is why I'm saying the people are crying out, because it's like we're just working to pay the salaries of our leaders and politicians with the taxes that they charge the landowners. For example, somebody told me yesterday while I was in one of the communities. They said, Nigel, could you believe that I have to work two jobs, and those two jobs is taxing me on SZV? SZV is the same company, but each job is taking taxes off to pay these guys, right? So these is one of the problems. I said, okay, if the minimum wage is so low that you need to work two, three jobs and they're still taxing and you still can't pay rent, something's wrong. We got to deal with it from the top. And I think one of these reasons is one of these places where we could start is the salaries. Do you think right now, look around at the current state of St. Martin, do you think that any one of these politicians are worth 22,000 guilders a month? We gave them the job to take care of GB. That's a problem. That's not worth 22 guilders. We gave them a job to take care of the youth, the Ministry of Education, stuff like that. Fix the library, fix the schools, fix the auditorium, put more money within mediators, mentors, big brother type stuff. Do we think that these people that were paying 22K deserve that? They don't. They don't. So if they don't deserve that money to take care of the consumer protection, the rent control, and all those type of other stuff, we have a problem. And this is my stance. So when I get in there's going to be a lot of work to do. This is why I've been studying the laws and whatnot, the different aspects. For example, when she told me that when I want to set up the wind turbines and there's a hurricane, how can we put it down, etc. I spoke to engineers concerning that. I also know that there's going to be a budget that has to be passed in parliament and whatnot. These are all the different aspects that I'm aware of. But in order for the public to stay focused on the main issue. I try to keep it as simple as possible. And when we're going back to the rent and whatnot, my stance, it has to be lower. There's only a certain class that could pay that type of rent, and it's not us, it's just the politicians. So that's where your problem. We're paying them too much to do nothing. And if they had some type of accountability, whereas if we don't do the job that we are we are appointed for, right? And if we come looking for the money and we can't find it, there should be some type of penalty. There should be some type of penalty. And on the other note, like I said, back to the work, the price is too much. That's why we have all these different parties, all these different candidates that's just going into the election for a payday. They're just going into the election for a payday. So this is where you don't get no type of real commitment because as they go in there, right, instead of focusing on fixing the roads, they're focusing on fixing a foundation in the hill to have more apartments to charge the same people high rent that they cannot afford. So where are we going with this? Where are we going with this? And this is the problem we got to fix. Plain and simple.
Okay. Thank you so much for that, Nigel. You've said a mouthful, and I'm sure the fact checkers are also fact checking you. But this is all the time we have today for Faith in Politics.
Thank
So
you.
we're gonna ask you just to close off now. We're winding down, and in 2 minutes or so, give your closing comments. But just before that, I have one final question for you, Nigel, and if you can make it
Okay.
as brief as you can as possible. We know that in this season, it's called the silly season, the campaigning season. We end up seeing the best and the worst in people. A lot happens, a lot comes out during this time, and St. Martin has gone through it so many times. We're traumatized. We're traumatized as an electorate. I want to ask you, as a person, personally, have you had to go into the trenches to defend your good name, to defend your position, and so forth? Because there is so much divisive rhetoric that is happening on the island right now. The climate is terribly negative. How have you been handling it?
You want me to be honest with you? I haven't really had to defend myself because I'm as transparent as can be. People say I kind of talk too much. I let people know too much of my business, but as a public figure, I think it's their need to know. I've been mostly defending other people that surround me or maybe that I'm representing more than myself.
So you have been able to stay above the fray, above the hate speech, the slander, all of that, the controversy. You have been able to stay out of
Y-
that,
Yeah,
or
because
you gave a few
ECE is the
jabs.
People's Party. Every now and then I give a few jabs every now and then, but that was before the campaign to wake everybody up and show them that look, this is serious. When you're talking to my people, our people, as I should say, take this serious because they're crying. Certain people, certain politicians don't have to listen to them crying every day. But I'm in the trenches with them. I'm taking bus with them, right? I'm getting donations from them to represent them as well. So I'm hearing them constantly. So with that being said, I hope the politicians from here on out say, look, when we make a promise to the people, let's try and keep that promise. And I'm also telling the electorate, stop listening to these promises and go back into the past, go fact check and see that, hey, have this person did anything for us last month, last year, last 2 years, last 3 years that we could see right now and I haven't seen it. Look at the roads. If I go outside right now, you're seeing potholes all over. If the car goes a little bit off the road, the whole axle could be broken from Ponce right down to the head of town. So
Thank you
what
so
have
much,
been done
Nigel.
for us?
I'm glad that you mentioned roads because we just got a question coming in from our online audience. Pastor Rolando Toulon, his concern, he was asking, and he directed this to Anna Richardson. We are a tourist country who always welcomes folks from all over. Tourism is our main income. Do you think that the state of our infrastructure, our roads, our street lights, Is it conducive? Is it welcoming? Is it safe? Is it what we should be representing as a tourism island?
Thank you, Pastor Tulin. Good afternoon to you. Thank you for the question. So, I am not of the position, especially when we are walking through our different or driving through our different neighborhoods. It is clear to see we have street lights that need to be addressed. GB needs to see to it that that gets the attention. And I'm pretty sure that GB receives these complaints from persons within the communities, advising them of that. Okay. However, again, I'm going to say the attention is always focused on government to be able to address these things, as opposed to recognizing that there is an institution that is responsible for this. Nevertheless, the ministers within the government can reach out to GB and indicate to them that these complaints are coming in. Again, I'm going to come back to the fact that with our Community Council Committee of Parliament going forward, this is an opportunity for us to keep record and measure as to what is getting addressed and what is not. I believe that we have a lot of work to do in terms of, yes, our infrastructure, but we also have a lot of work to do with being able to generate the income the country needs. And when one speaks about the type of salary, first of all, let me just clarify something. Your gross income is around that 20,000 that is being mentioned. However, the higher your income is, the more taxes you pay. So the net pay that you have is far lower than what individuals continue to push. And it's going to be very interesting to see when certain persons get elected, and I'm speaking positively here, that they are going to forfeit their salaries in comparison to the work that they're going to be done. It's going to be very important to see if they're going to do that. But at the end of the day, it is a matter of us being able to identify that our country needs to generate income to afford the repairs and the upgrades that we have to bring forward. So I do agree that as a tourist destination, we have a lot of work to do to be able to brighten our. Look at our capital, Phillipsburg. At night, it looks very dark and very, gloomy, when the Simpson Bay area seems to be where the life is. And I think, that attraction needs to come back into the capital of our island in terms of, waste. Waste management is another aspect. We see a lot of garbage being put out by even our retailers. They're putting out the garbage, the stray dogs, etc., running through the neighborhoods are also contributing to how, dirty our streets look. So all of these things we definitely need to do. But let me also end by saying this. It is a community effort as well that will help us as a country to be able to improve. Levying all the weight on politicians and the government. We living in our communities have a role and responsibility. And what we lack is unity, being able to work together, as opposed to, and Pastor, you made mention about, the negative connotation that we have going on, that energy of negativity that keeps pushing. And I just wanted to touch on that for a quick second to state that, especially in this political arena, and especially in this pursuit to election day, it is the very politicians that is tearing each other down. It is the very politicians that are speaking negatively about. So even if I have done well as a minister, you have another politician that needs the public to see me in a negative eye, because what is the pursuit? To get that vote. So you have to make me look like I am incapable or inadequate to be able to carry out this function, or that my intentions are ill will and I have no good intentions to be able to work for St. Martin, but you are. We have to be careful as a people how we paint each other as well, because on a day-to-day basis, what you say out your mouth is what people hear in their ears, and they carry that along, and that's the bandwagons I was talking about.
Thank you so much. That's all the time we have. Former Minister Anna, your closing remarks. 2 minutes.
Yes, thank you so very much, first of all, for this opportunity. I think it was a very fruitful discussion. I am extremely elated and grateful for the opportunity to speak to the faith base, because I know this is a whole different hemisphere of opportunity here. I would want to ask that if you have not been able to converse with me directly as a person, and you have information that might not, or at least, the picture that has been painted about my person, give me an opportunity for you and I to speak. You can connect with me on social media. I have my elect page. It's elect Anna Richardson. My team handles that, but the information will get to me. Or you can look at former Minister Anna Elaine Richardson or my personal page is Anna A. Richardson. Get in contact with me. Let's talk. Let me be able to give you information that is actual and factual. On August 19th, I am seeking to be able to continue as a representative for St. Maarten, for you, and I would appreciate the opportunity that you would identify my person as your representative to do so. Once again, I want to thank SMUM for giving me this opportunity to be here, and I hope that I answered the questions that were posed to me clearly enough. If not, I'm available to anyone who would want to converse a little further. Thank you very much. Everyone stay safe and keep God first, please.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Thank you so much. Mr. Wigley, your closing remarks?
Thank you. Thank you for having me. Thank you, Smurf. Thank you, Miss Anna Richardson, for being a part of this as well. And I would like to have a serious talk with the Christian community. If I have not answered your questions informatively, completely, 664. And also, I hope you can hear me right now because somebody's car. We are in dire times. We are in the last days. As you can see, our government is straying further and further and further away from the laws of the Most High. And as I said in the postulation speech, we have about 100 churches right now on the island. If only 5 people from those churches vote ECE, right? We'll have a lot of votes. We'll have enough votes for me to get a seat because all we need is one. We need, depending on the outcome, it's the amount of voters divided by 15, right? So I know we might need anywhere between 7 to 1,000 votes. So if I could get at least 5 to 10 people from each church, I'll have more than enough votes to represent you, to to make sure righteousness is respected, and to make sure God is put first. Because our people right now, especially our people in power, they love to say God, 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 but God is not with them because faith is also practiced by works. So if I say that I'm with God and I don't follow his laws, loving his neighbor, loving our neighbor as ourselves, then I'm not really for God. So with that being said, we are the voice to trust.
Thank you so much, Mr. Wigley. Thank you so much for joining. Thank you. A special thank you to candidate Anna E. Richardson of the National Alliance and also Mr. Nigel Emmanuel Wigley of the ECE, the Empire Culture Empowerment Party. This has been Faith in Politics, our first series, our first session. There's 2 more sessions to go. Tomorrow we'll be here again. And
10:30 sharp.
10:30 sharp AM. For those of you that are still sending questions in the comment sections, because of time, we cannot carry on your questions and ask them to our guests. However, we will take note of them and see how we can ask them to some other guests in the future. So do not forget to share this post, share this live, share this to your friends. Let us get the information going out. Thank you for joining us on this episode. It has been an enlightening journey as we explore how faith shapes our political landscape and influences the leaders who serve our communities. Faith can have a profound impact on public service and policy making. Therefore, our personal convictions, words, and actions in the political sphere must align with our faith. We encourage you to stay engaged, ask questions. Please ask your questions a little bit earlier tomorrow so we can get them to the guests. Tomorrow we should have 3 other guests on from the 3 different parties, and so we look forward to that. Pastor Torana, any last words?
Just thank you so much for watching and remember to vet before you vote.
Remember to vet before you vote.
God bless you.
#vet before you vote. God bless you. To our guests once again, thank you so much. To the organization SMUMF, thank you so much for organizing this informative session. God bless you.